Hello and welcome to Good Evening Britain, a Force for Good's weekly show coming to you live from our studios here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow, with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. We're broadcasting across all our digital platforms throughout the United Kingdom and across the world, bringing you quality pro-UK comment and analysis every Wednesday from 7 until 8 p.m. on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter and on TikTok. Folks, please send in your comments and send in your questions, and please tell us where you are viewing from. And tonight we're calling this programme SNP crashes down into financial chaos, because goodness me, with every passing day we realise the extent to which the Scottish National Party has been primarily ripping off its own members and also at the same time ripping off, of course, our fantastic country. And the chickens are coming home to roost. You know, yesterday we learned that their auditors had jumped ship back in September, and today we learn that the same auditors also jumped ship from the Westminster group of SNP MPs that they were also the accountants for, because the SNP have a Westminster group and they get a lot of money from the British taxpayer. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions a year, at least 1 million a year anyway, according to reports today. And that comes directly from the British taxpayer that they seem to hate so much. And we pay them in order to be in Westminster and to talk their nonsense. And of course, all that money that we pay them has to be audited, but it's not being audited anymore. And so the question is, who on earth, what kind of reputable accountancy firm is going to take that job? What kind of auditor wants to get that particular gig? It would be the kiss of death for them. And so the question is, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? We'll be discussing that. We'll also be discussing that with our guest tonight at the bottom of the hour at 7:30. We have the YouTube personality, Ash, That Preston Journalist. And Ash will be joining us at 7:30. There is the great man himself, the brilliant Ash, That Preston Journalist, not to be missed. He's coming up for 25 minutes at 7:30, folks, so please do stick around for that. And if you're on TikTok, you won't see the interview because we conduct the interview via the computer screen here, so you won't be able to see it on TikTok. You'll need to go to youtube.com/UK, a force for good. But please, on TikTok, send in your comments and send in any questions that you have. And if you're an SNP supporter on TikTok, or indeed watching on any platform, tell us what you think of your party, please, and we'll read out your comments. Because goodness me, it does look like they are not really going to recover for a while anyway. And you know, I was reading this this is an editorial from The Guardian newspaper. This marks a high-stakes moment for Humza Yousaf, the SNP and UK politics. And in it says, the arrest of Mr Murrow for 12 hours, the arrival of the police outside the home he shares with Ms Sturgeon in Glasgow this week, and the police search of the SNP headquarters in Edinburgh all add up to something important and new. The most high-profile engagement ever seen between the criminal justice system and a modern British political party. I'm going to read that again. The most high-profile engagement ever seen between the criminal justice system and a modern British political party. To understand what is at stake, People should try to imagine the tensions and responses if the house and offices of a recently retired British Prime Minister had been searched in the same manner. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? But this is what we've got here in Scotland. And as we said last week, isn't it so ironic, and isn't it so fitting, and isn't it poetic justice that the money that they raised to try to destroy our great United Kingdom is the money that's bringing them down? 3 cheers for that. Fantastic. All these people given money for such a dismal negative cause, only to discover that the money that they wasted is the money that paid to bring their own party down. Hallelujah, as they say. Emma wonders if it was a decoy to take our eyes away from something else. Has there been any charges yet? No, there hasn't been any charges yet, Rio, and we'll wait to see what comes of that. But here we go. Accountants cut and run after SNP's deepening crisis becomes festering wound. This was a few days ago. The big picture is there's so many questions that require an answer, and they're not going to go away. They're going to suppurate like a festering wound. Until they are answered, the new First Minister will be the victim of collateral damage, says a senior supporter of Kate Forbes. It's necessary for Sturgeon and Murrow to give answers to all these questions. What on earth is going on? Now, here's the thing. The party has until July the 7th to present their next set of accounts to the Electoral Commission or face possible sanctions. Now, the Electoral Commission is the arm's length quango that's responsible for ensuring that political parties and elections and referendums in this country are run by a set of laws. And they're also responsible for registering all the political parties that exist and that are allowed to exist in the country, and also ensuring that all of these political parties put forward accounts and explain where their money comes from and where it goes. And these are legal requirements that everybody, even if you stand as an independent, you have to report to the Electoral Commission in one way or another. And the law which runs, and the law by which the Electoral Commission run affairs is called the Political Parties, Elections and Referendums Act 2000, and it details penalties that are in order if you don't follow the regulations properly. And let's bring up the section 43 of the Political Parties, Elections and Referendums Act 2000. There you go. And the blue bit there of section 43 says, if it appears to the Commission that any accounts required to be audited by virtue of these subsections have not been duly audited by the time mentioned, in this case 7th of July, the Commission may appoint a qualified auditor to audit those accounts. Okay. So what that means is, if those accounts are not with the Electoral Commission by the 7th of July, the Commission may appoint its own auditor or its own team who will go in and try to find out what's going on. And let's look at the next section here that I want to bring up. Section 44. that an auditor who is so duly appointed to carry out an audit is entitled to require from the Treasurer or any other officer of the party any such information and explanations as he thinks necessary for the performance of that task. Okay, basically your auditor can require the SNP to give them whatever they want as far as information is concerned. And if that's not forthcoming, let's look at the next section. Criminal penalty for failure to submit proper statement of accounts. If in the case of a registered party, these requirements or regulations are not properly delivered to the Commission, then the person who was the treasurer of the party immediately before the end of that period is guilty of an offence. Okay, so that's not talked about so much, but the actual party treasurer or any officials they're associated with could be guilty of an offence, a criminal offence it might be added. And what's the next section we've got here? Okay, that's the one that I've just read out. Maybe that was the only sections there that I've got up. Yes, they're the only sections that I've got up. But another section that I wanted to bring up was pointing out the actual penalties. And the penalties are mainly fines. Okay, various kinds of fines. But there's a lot of offences in that particular act, which can be found in the schedules under penalties. And reading through them, it could be said that the Scottish National Party are guilty of a lot of them. And a very serious situation that the party has got itself into. And goodness me, if it is if it's not able to sort this out, what could happen to it? One thing that they can do, one thing the SNP can do is they can ask for more time. If July 7th rolls around and they don't have anything ready, they can ask for more time, and it's up to the Electoral Commission whether or not, in view of the circumstances, they're prepared to give the SNP more time to sort it out. So the SNP will keep this running for as long as they can. 7th of July isn't the final say-so if the Electoral Commission allows the SNP more time, which they may do just for political and diplomatic reasons. Who knows? As we say, it's all to be played for. At this stage. Lots of comments coming in. Great stuff. Thanks for that. AR Entertainment wonders if Nicola Sturgeon will stand down as the MSP for Glasgow South Side. Would her seat be lost to a unionist party like Labour? That's a good question. I would need to look at what the actual how much she's in the lead by. We need to find that out, but it's a possibility, isn't it? Anything's up for grabs. Whether she would stand down or not, I don't know. She certainly won't be standing at the next Scottish election, that's for sure. But whether she stands down in the interim, we'll have to see. That may be something that she'll only do if she's pushed into a situation where that is the appropriate diplomatic response. Good evening, as always, to Debbie and to Susan and to TC and to Paul from the Garden of Kent, from the Garden of England, known as Kent. Adam says hello. And Kat, will be mentioning you on this day in British history, because I know you visited the great British city of Lincoln, and we'll be talking about that later in the show. Harry says, evening, Unionists and AFFG. wasn't on last week due to it being my birthday. Well, happy birthday to Harry Brown. Happy birthday, Harry. British Legends says, force for good, always for good, no surrender. Adam believes, quite rightly, the SNP is imploding. The return of a Labour-led Scotland could be inevitable. Well, whether that's something to cheer for or not is very much in question, depending upon your political point of view. I know some people will think that's a great thing. What the Labour Party will have to do is to distinguish themselves as somehow different from the SNP on lots of other matters, rather than simply copying them on all the usual matters, which it's been doing lately. Around, for example, the trans thing. You couldn't put a piece of paper between the difference of the SNP and Labour. They both think exactly the same on those sorts of matters. Hello to Tommy. And Freaky has a message to the SNP, which is bye-bye, you won't be missed. And watch the door doesn't hit you on the way out, as we like to say. British Legends wonders if Sturgeon's going to prison. Well, time will tell on those things. Someone says, Nicola Sturgeon in jail would remind me of Lizzie Birdsworth in Prisoner Cell Block H. Not a programme that I ever watched, so I can't, but I can imagine what you mean. I can imagine what you mean. Hello to Alan. Adam says, if you're a pro-SNP Scottish nationalist watching on TikTok, send us your comments and we'll laugh at you. Well, we'll read them out if they are sensible. Phil Mitchell says Joe Biden is going to destroy the union. I don't know if he will. I think he has enough trouble trying to destroy his cornflakes in the morning, I should imagine, without trying to destroy the union. Hopefully he won't, but he is talking a load of nonsense, certainly at the moment, Joe Biden, as far as that's concerned. Somebody says that I don't get that point, hang on. And Mark says, it's a great time to be a unionist. Every day is a good day if you're a unionist. Absolutely. And Michael Wright says, great that you are exposing these charlatans. And Adam believes it's time for the SNP to go back to the opposition benches in Holyrood. Yeah. That's right. They took away a camper van from outside of old Mrs. Morrow's house, and as somebody quipped on Twitter, it was like we had moved from Brookside to Breaking Bad. We had moved from the suburban drama to somebody using a camper van to cook meth. For those of you who have seen that American series, Brookside to Breaking Bad, it's all happening in the Scottish National Party. And as Christopher says, it really is incredible to imagine a business without any financial oversight. Truly unbelievable and corrupt. Utterly unbelievable and corrupt. And these are the people who are running Scotland and got voted for as well. So goodness me. And Christopher says that we need the UK government to carry out a full audit of the Scottish administration. And yes, we certainly do. And that should be something that's done on a regular basis, just to ensure proper governance of Scotland. There should be a national audit that's taken just to make sure that the devolved assemblies and parliaments are being run appropriately. That's an important thing that we should be campaigning on and mentioning regularly. Hi Stuart, and hello to Alfie. It says, well done for exposing the lies and deceit of the SNP. Cable says, do you still believe the Union is 5,000 years old? We're changing that now. We think it's maybe 10,000 years old. Mr. White says, let's be honest with ourselves. This party has been corrupt for years and nothing has ever been said. Even our own British government has let this rumble on. There ain't no charges coming their way. Well, I know what you mean. Sometimes you wonder if the British government will ever get off its backside to do very much at all. Well, time will tell. Time will tell. Cable Games, who is obviously an anonymous person, says some of the comments here are fake. Oh yeah, we've got an army of bots creating comments. Paul says, thank you for the special edition of Union Heart, which arrived today. Crikey, we sent it last week, but good to see that it's arrived, Paul. That's Union Heart, Union of Crowns. And this is available free of charge to any monthly donor who simply requests to be put on our magazine mailing list. And it's also available at our shop, aforceforgood.uk aforceforgood.uk/shop-1. And it's selling very well. There you go. And this is celebrating the 420th anniversary this year of the Union of the Crowns. And let's talking about the Union of the Crowns and talking about today as well. Today, and we'll talk about this now in our on this day in British history, the prize for our competition, which will be coming up in a few minutes, is a Union Jack. This Union Jack. Bespoke 3x2 Union Jack, as seen outside of Nicola Sturgeon's house last Wednesday, when one of our colleagues went along and waved this very flag. Not this particular one, but one of our flags. These are bespoke made for A Force for Good. They're 3x2, and they've got an open hem that you can put a flagpole into, along with a tie. And that will be the prize today. And the reason that's going to be the prize is because it was on this day, 12th of April in 1606, when the first ever Union Jack was commanded to wave. And we wrote about this in our magazine. A Scotsman created the Union Jack. That's in our latest issue of Union Heart. James VI created the Union Jack to represent the union of the kingdoms of Scotland and England. Wales at the time was considered a principality of the Kingdom of England. And that was on the 12th of April today in 1606. And of course the St. Patrick's Cross was added at the union with Ireland in 1801. But it was on this day that he issued a royal proclamation ordering all royal and merchant ships to fly it, that from henceforth all our subjects of this isle and kingdom of Great Britain and the members thereof shall bear in their maintop this flag, joined together according to a form made by our heralds and sent by us to our admiral, to be published to our said subjects. That's on this day. And people will say, oh, it's the Union flag, it's not the Union Jack. Well, while we were researching this, and we mentioned this fact here, we discovered that the British Parliamentary website actually states this incredible piece of information. Check it out. The Union Jack flag. In 1606, James VI gave orders for a British flag to be created which bore the combined crosses of St. George and of St. Andrew. The result was the Union Jack, Jack being a shortening of Jacobus, the Latin version of James. And that's in the British Parliament website. So you heard it from them. The result was the Union Jack, Jack being a shortening of Jacobus, the Latin version of James. Not many people know that. And you always get people say, oh, it's meant to be like the jack staff of a jack or whatever, but no. So that was on this day, the Union Jack invented. And I also want to thank Kat, who's one of our viewers, for bringing another thing to our attention on this day. And on this day 5 years ago was the official opening of the, get this, the International Bomber Command Centre in Lincoln, which is a museum that we had never heard of before. But it's today is the 5th year anniversary of its existence, and it's situated in Lincoln at Canwick Avenue, and world-class facility acknowledging the efforts, sacrifices and commitment of those from 62 different nations who came together in Bomber Command during World War II, hence the international appellation attached to it. And at the heart of the centre is the memorial spire, which we'll just put up there. There it is. That is to represent the spire on the city's cathedral, which apparently served as a sighting point for crews who are flying out from Lincolnshire. And they've also got a wall of names, and apparently there's 271 individual panels scattered there, or not scattered, but created around the spire in the centre. And the names list the 58,000 people who lost their lives serving or supporting Bomber Command during World War II, with the names in alphabetical order. And there's also a Falkland Islands tribute, Standing with Giants it's called, and there you can see it through some of the walls of names. And these are silhouettes, 258 silhouetted life-size figures of British military personnel and 3 Falkland Islanders who lost their lives during the conflict with Argentina back in 1982. And let's see, there's another one. And Kat tells us, she says, I found walking amongst the Standing with Giants installation very emotive, especially as the silhouettes were swaying in the breeze. And families come from all over the world to the IBCC to view the names of their loved ones memorialised on the walls. So there you go. That was the International Bomber Command Centre Museum, opened 5 years ago in Lincoln. Now I'll ask you a wee question, and the winner will get one of these flags. Send your answers, please, to send your answer, please, to contact@aforceforgood.uk. And the first person to get the correct answer will get one of these, which is worth £5.50, and also a complimentary copy of the magazine, which is worth £3.50. So that's a good prize. That's a £9 prize. Fantastic. Now we've got Ash coming up just in a minute. I see that he is in the house. Paul says to Cable Games, read Union Heart and it will change your heart. Tommy says the UK government has just given them enough rope. It seems so. They're doing a very good job of climbing up the gallows themselves, the SNP. And Stuart says, close Holyrood down, bring back the Scottish office. Well, we're going to be speaking about that with Ash in 30 seconds. But beforehand, let me ask you the question. The question for this flag is the International Bomber Command Centre was officially opened 5 years ago today on the 12th of April in which great British city? Send your answers, folks, to contact@aforceforgood.uk. And if you haven't won before, you're in with a good chance. And if you haven't tried before, you're also in with a good chance. So please do try that out. Now, ladies and gentlemen, YouTube personality Ash, That Preston Journalist, is going to be with us for the next 25 minutes. Please say hello to Ash.
Evening.
Hello, Ash.
Are you well?
I'm very well, thank you very much. You must be enjoying the Carry On that's playing here in Scotland.
Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, even when Sturgeon resigned, I thought it was terrific, but then it just seems to be getting worse every day. a new scandal every day just seems to be emerging, doesn't it? It's so
Yes.
fantastic. It's so fantastic to see.
Absolutely, and it's given you no shortage of material for your regular YouTube broadcasts, because Ash, you do a program. Well, you don't do a program, but you do regular videos every day. You're knocking out videos. How many are you putting out on average a day?
Put 4 out a day usually, unless something big happens. Then I might do a quick one just to get something out there. But yeah, usually 4 a day.
That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic work. And I noticed you had one up today, which was about people in Scotland actually wanting to shut Holyrood down. What was that one about?
Yeah, that was one I saw. In fact, if I said it's just the Express, then SNP voters would go, oh, that's rubbish then. But it was also the Herald and the Courier, also receiving letters from people, not just who are unionists, but people who were SNP voters that wanted Holyrood closed down. Some of them were saying that the independence cause is finished anyway now, because they believed that Salmon and Sturgeon were the only ones that could do anything to deliver it. And obviously they both failed. Some, of course, were unionists as well, saying that Holyrood wasn't worth the money that it costs anymore. It's a very expensive institution. And really, all it's done is let people down. It isn't there to serve the people anymore, is it? It isn't there to look after people who are struggling with energy bills, etc. It's simply there to promote the breaking up of the UK, which is not what a devolved administration should be doing.
That's right. All it's done is it's simply given a platform to an aggressively anti-UK party in order to grandstand and to promote its anti-unity, anti-solidarity, anti-British, often anti-English message. Given them a great platform to do that, but not anything that's actually improved our particular lives for the better. And so it's very easy to believe that things could just be, they'd either be the same or they'd be better if in fact we had if we didn't have it at all. Now, of course, the question is, we've got it and it's not going away, and the only way that we could get it to go away would be if we had a referendum, really, to get it to go away. I know some people might fantasize about, somebody can just press a button and shut it down, but I don't see how politically feasible that would be, really. Not at this stage, anyway. What would you agree with that, or do you think that the British government should take a much more sort of proactive approach on that?
I think for Westminster to intervene in any way in Holyrood, and whether it stays open or not, would simply play into the hands of Alex Salmond in the Alba Party and Humza Yousaf in the SNP. They would have the biggest weapon ever to turn round to everyone who may have supported independence in the past or still does, to say, oh, look what they're doing to us. They now want to take our parliament away, as well as blocking laws that we want to pass as well. So I don't think it would be a wise move for Westminster to get involved. Although the costs of running Holyrood are absolutely massive now. They cost more. I believe I read this somewhere. It costs more now for the MSPs, the quangos, all the salaries, the expenses, than it does to actually run the building.
Really?
So it really is a very expensive institution. But no, I don't think it'd be right. Yeah, but I don't think it'd be right for Westminster to intervene at this point, because like I said, it would just, I believe it would actually promote independence rather than helping the unionist cause. But maybe people might think differently, but that's my thoughts. Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean, and I can understand that happening, because you look at the fuss that they're able to generate if the British Parliament does something innocuous, such as knock back a particular law that is inappropriate for our United Kingdom, such as what they did with the GRR. And you look at the fuss that Humza Yousaf makes about that. Although somebody made a very good point to me today. They said, when Humza Yousaf's talking about taking because what he's going to do is, it looks like he's going to go to the court and contest the British Parliament for knocking back the GRR bill and for not allowing it to go ahead. Well, he's on to a loser there anyway.
Yeah.
But the argument that he's making is not anything substantial about the actual content of the GRR bill. He's not saying that this is what has to be done because it's fair to these particular people or something like that. The whole angle is Scotland's democracy denied. Okay, that's the line that he knows. The same old tired and tested lines, isn't it? Yeah. He thinks that's the angle that will appeal to people, rather than trying to say, children should be able to self-identify as whatever they want. Instead of that angle, which he knows won't really get much support, he's going with the Scotland's democracy's been denied again sort of thing. It's the same old Sturgeon lines, isn't it? It didn't work for her. So what makes him think that he's any better of a communicator than she was? Because he's not. And if she couldn't get it passed, and it brought her down in the end, as we both know, then what chance has he got? He's only doing this for the grievance manifesto, isn't it? But it's just he hasn't got anything original to say. He's made some mistakes in his political career. I mean, every job he's ever touched has turned into an absolute disaster. But I think taking this job as First Minister is his biggest mistake to date. He's walked into... He might have thought it'd be a difficult job to regain some support, possibly, because they were already dropping in the polls. But now all these scandals are coming out left, right and centre, some of which I can't prove and I'm not sure. I suspect he knows more about some of them than what he's letting on. But obviously he's telling us that he didn't know anything about all this stuff at the moment. But he has made a huge mistake here. How do you see his future? How long do you think he's going to be in place, given the present circumstances? I think he'll be lucky to see the next general election. Really? I think if he goes to the Supreme Court now with this gender bill, which he's saying he will do, fine. He's going to spend hundreds of thousands of taxpayers' money again on a wasted court case. He's going to send that Dorothy Bain down there, who, let's face it, she was absolutely hopeless when Sturgeon tried to get her to argue for a referendum. So much so
that the SNP themselves had to write individual letters to the Supreme Court because they thought she was crap. So how she's going to get the gender bill through, I don't know. And once he's lost that, that's his grievance done. What's he got left? Absolutely nothing.
That's right. Well, what he might then do is, by that time, perhaps we'll be having a general election, and he'll be able to say, "Look at us. We went to the Supreme Court and we got turned down again. It was so terrible. This terrible English court. They love calling it
yeah, that's
court.
it. Yeah.
Even though the guy in charge of it's a Scottish judge, and even though
that's right.
Even though when Sturgeon got turned down back last November, the panel of 5 judges were from each part of the UK.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be like another failure to add to his long list of failures. My own opinion is that the only reason that he'll last in that job is because nobody of any sense is going to want to take it on. It's
the ultimate poison chalice, isn't it?
Yeah. So even if he does continue to fail in it, even everybody's talking up Kate Forbes. I mean, I don't know. I think because she can string a few sentences together. I mean, basically that makes her special in the SNP. There's nothing like intrinsically remarkable about this woman. I've never read an article. Well, I know she writes articles, or somebody writes articles for her in the National. But in fact, there was one yesterday, but I couldn't be bothered reading it because it's like, who cares, basically. Anyway, there's nothing special about her, or indeed any of these SNP people, and none of them will want to take on this poison chalice at this particular stage, not for a long while. So I see him being in there just kind of as a default figure, really, as a kind of what's the phrase? Is it a whipping boy or somebody? You
scapegoat, isn't he?
Scapegoat. That's the phrase. Scapegoat.
Yeah, he's a scapegoat.
Like, yeah. Stick him in there, and who cares, kind of thing. That's how I see him, I have to say. But
it probably is. And then when he loses the next election and loses a load of seats, then they'll probably try and replace him. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but Kate Forbes has changed her lines a little bit today. She's been very critical of Humza Yousaf, not surprisingly, since he came in. But today she's calling for party unity. She's calling for them all to get behind him and march towards independence and all that usual rubbish, which says to me that she's quite happy to sit it out on the sidelines and watch him fail. Because if I was her, I'd be so relieved that I didn't win the election, that win the leadership contest, that I'd be happy to just sit there and watch the person who kicked me out the cabinet fail.
Yeah. They always do that, the SNP. They always go, "Oh, we need unity, and we need to come together." And it's like, we need unity, and we need to come together so that we can succeed in dividing the Scottish people against themselves. You know, it's a really ironic message that they've got. You know, only by uniting together can we successfully divide the people. Is basically the angle.
Of course.
That they take. You know, it's absurd.
That's one thing I'll say for Sturgeon, Sorry to interrupt you. That's one thing I'll say for Sturgeon. Despite the fact I don't like her, she managed to keep a lot of divisions very, very secret, didn't she? Nobody really knew what was going on inside the party, even when people didn't see eye to eye on different things. It turns out recently that people like Kate Forbes, by the way, weren't even allowed in cabinet meetings. So they didn't even know what policies were being announced. So that's how she did it. She just didn't tell anybody what was going on, and she just made them all fall in line. And she did it very effectively. Whereas now she's gone, it's like a weight's been lifted off all these people's shoulders, and they're happy to speak out all over the place now about what's going wrong in the party. But the problem is, they've all got different views on everything. None of them seem to agree on anything. You've got your outcasts like Joanna Cherry, who will never be welcome in the party, and if they could get rid of them, they probably would. And then the other side, you've got your ultra independence people that don't seem to agree with Humza Yousaf or Joanna Cherry. And then there's people like Stephen Flynn. If you can tell me what he believes in, then good luck to you, because he is the most inept politician I've seen speak in Westminster. Absolutely terrible. If you watch him stand there, he's got his arms by his side. he's like some little boy being told off by the headmaster in the office.
Yeah.
He looks absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you what he does believe in, and if I was him, I'd believe in it too, and that's my £84,144 salary.
Yeah.
Which is very nice money if you can get it, and that's a year, £84,000 a year for
plus
5
expenses,
years. Plus huge expenses.
Yeah,
huge expenses. You never need to worry about anything again. Quite frankly, if you can become a MP for 5 years, put some money aside, you could probably retire for the next 20 years if you play your cards right. So that's what they do believe in, ultimately, I think. So yeah, great work if you can get it. And some people are just born in the right place at the right time, and they find themselves an MP down in Westminster. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Well, you made a great point before when you said that obviously the auditors have now quit the Westminster branch of the party as well, and those people are going to be audited even closer, I suspect, than the SNP in Holyrood, because they're all being paid more than the SNP. Sorry, they're all being paid more than the Holyrood SNP. They're all being paid more in expenses than the MSP counterparts. The salary's £20,000 more for an MP than it is for an MSP. The travel costs are absolutely humongous. If you look at someone like Mary Black, Ian Blackford, I know they live further away than, say, an English politician, but their expenses, you're talking huge sums of money, £250,000, £300,000 expenses. Absolutely huge amounts of money.
Huge amounts of money, and all from us, from the British taxpayer as well, which is the most remarkable thing. We pay them to try to break up the country.
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it?
Which kind of boils my proverbial, I have to say. Especially, I mean, you and I were grassroots activists, and we're trying to save the country, and like the British government don't care about us, but they'll give the SNP and allow the SNP to have like hundreds of thousands of pounds, each individual member of the SNP to have hundreds of thousands of pounds a year to destroy the country. Yeah. Just the way it works, I suppose. That's democracy for you.
I suppose so. It's sort of what we said last time, isn't it? It's had Westminster actually done their job from day one with Salmond, with Sturgeon, and all the rest of them, this would never have happened, because they'd have had the wings clipped many times, and they'd have known what they can do, what they can't do, what's devolved, what's not, instead of appeasing them left, right, and centre. And now they get kind of understandably really offended when Westminster actually do their jobs, because they're not used to it. But make no mistake, when Humza goes to the Supreme Court, if he does, Alistair Jack will have a watertight case against him. The UK government will have a watertight case against him, because otherwise they would never have taken the step in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point. That's a good point. The extent to which the SNP, because the SNP have to be trained as like, this is how devolution works. You know, It's quite right that certainly, for example, within the United Kingdom, we do respect the voice of the Scottish Parliament, but we respect it within the overall voice of the British Parliament.
Yeah.
And that's a reflection of we're respecting the voice of the Scottish people within the overall context of the voice of the British people as expressed through our collective parliament. That's the way it works. So sometimes the voice of Holyrood might have to get overridden by the louder voice of all the people of the United Kingdom. There's nothing sinister about that. That's the way that devolution works.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not in a separated Scotland at this time. If we were in a separated Scotland and somehow the British Parliament was laying down the law, then you could complain, because that wouldn't be right. But so long as you're part of a devolved structure where the British Parliament is ultimately the final say, because it represents all the people of the United Kingdom, then you can't complain about that unless you're deliberately trying to misrepresent the nature of devolution, which of course is what they're trying to do. So
Yeah.
they have to be trained to understand it properly. And from the very get-go, that's not really been properly done. Even when Labour were in charge. I mean, Labour had an easy run because there was a Labour administration at Holyrood while they had a Labour government at Westminster. So
Yeah.
there was really no tension there. There's really no political tension there. And so there was never any need for the Labour Party at the time to explain what devolution was and how it was meant to work. And then when the Tories came in under Cameron and so on, well, they didn't have a clue about anything. I mean, Cameron didn't even know what the Magna Carta was, let alone what devolution in a British Constitution is. I mean, he was literally, when you look back, you have to understand the extent to which that these folk at the time were utterly clueless. And we think, oh, politician, in Westminster, he's on the telly, he must be clever. No, they're not.
No, he wasn't. These people are educated at some of the finest schools in the world. You wouldn't think it, would you? People like David Cameron. Him and George Osborne were an absolute disaster for this country. I mean, so was Blair, don't get me wrong. We had a series of terrible governments.
Yes.
But, in fact, it's continued ever since, I think. We've had really bad governments ever since. But, yeah, Cameron was absolutely awful. And then when he came out and made... just when I thought the SNP were on the decline a few years ago, was it David Cameron that came out and said, the Queen was purring in Buckingham Palace because the Scots have voted to stay in the UK? Like, why would you say something so stupid?
Yes, he should have kept his mouth shut on that particular issue. I did read this article today by Humza Yousaf in The National, which I read so that other people don't have to. And he's saying that we are predicting his and the SNP's demise, but guess what? They're not going to demise. And he says something which always puzzles me, and lots of SNP people say it, and I'll just read it out. He's talking about Scotland, and he's going, quite rightly, he's saying, Scotland has brilliant entrepreneurs and a tech sector which attracts international attention. We have some of the most significant energy resources on the continent. We have world-class universities and colleges, and on some measures we have the most highly educated workforce in Europe. To which I would add, thanks to the Union, thanks to being part of the United Kingdom. Okay, but he doesn't. These are all the positives that they always talk about that we enjoy here in Scotland. It is thanks to the Union.
Yeah,
that's why
it's devolution settlements, Barnett consequentials. How would Scotland, no offence to Scotland, it's a relatively small country, say, compare it to England, how would it ever, or the rest of the UK, for example, how would it ever pay for free hospital parking, free tuition fees, free prescriptions if it left the UK? There'd be no devolution settlements or anything like that. So, like you said, rightly, everything they name just supports the Union. It's like they don't seem to understand this.
Yeah. Well, apparently what they would do, according to the Green Party and some of the wilder shores of the Scottish National Party, and probably the Labour Party as well, is they're going to tax all the rich people. Well, I've lived in Scotland all my life, and I've never... I think I've met one person that I would classify as rich. They're not exactly 10 a penny here in Scotland. And you've got to remember, Scotland's it's a small population. Right?
Yeah.
It's growing every day, if my bus journey into town is anything to go by. But it's leaving that controversy aside, normally without that particular element of growth, you're looking at just slightly over 5 million people.
Yeah.
And it's been like that for a long time. And most of the population is around the central belt. And it does not have a high proportion of very rich people that can be taxed. And remember, if you are a very rich person, you've got lots of options, and you don't have to hang around on one side.
You take that money out, don't you?
Yeah, you take it out, or you move your business, or sometimes you just have to move your business address. You don't even have to move yourself.
Yeah.
So it's ignorant to imagine that we're going to get all this new money by taxing people in Scotland.
It doesn't work. And even Westminster are doing something similar, like stealth taxing and things like that. But if you look at, there's a good article about Norway going around at the moment. If you look, And a lot of the wealthy in Norway are now moving to other countries around the continent, or even to London, for example, to set up businesses, because they've raised all the taxes on the wealthy. Sorry, there's rumours now that Humza Yousaf wants to bring in another level of tax in Scotland, up to 45 pence at the top rate of tax, and it's already higher than your brothers and sisters down in England, for example. So how much more high do you think they're going to raise it? And if you can't take an example from a country like Norway, which for a moderately sized country is very successful business-wise and economically, if they're losing now huge amounts of wealth because of increasing taxes, then take that lesson. Don't copy a system that's blatantly broken. So whatever wealth they have, like McVitie's, you remember all that scandal, they'll just move. They'll take their businesses elsewhere, whether it's across the border to Carlisle or something, and they'll pay less tax. Why wouldn't you if you ran a business or if you had millions of pounds in the banks? You're not going to stay somewhere voluntarily that's going to tax you even more than anywhere else, are you?
No. It's a losing game. I played a losing game, and that's what they're certainly doing. It's I can't believe that's almost top of the hour, actually. So we'll have to call our wee chat to an end. Ash, thank you very much for coming on.
Can I just say one more thing quickly?
Go ahead. Yeah.
There's a comment just appeared, and if your producer can put it up, it is a blatant lie from someone called IndieRef. Totally, absolutely untrue. Scotland does not send more money down to the rest of the UK than it gets back from Westminster. Just look at the facts, look at the figures, and it's just because the money goes missing under the SNP that you think Scotland sends more than it gets back, but it's blatantly not true. I just wanted to get that in there.
I'm glad you got that in there, and I'm glad you got that off your chest. And from a unionist perspective, even if that were the case, unionist people would say, well, hooray, because that's what the union is about. The union is about sharing our resources, and many times it may be that England sends more to Scotland. Sometimes Scotland might be sending more to England, but so what? Because at the end of the day, we're all British, and the point of the union is to share our resources. So
exactly.
Even if that were the case, we unionists would say hooray to that. And
I wasn't saying Scotland doesn't contribute. Of course it does. I'm not saying that at all.
Exactly.
It's just blatant lies like that. Yeah.
It's misrepresentation. Thanks for clearing that up, Ash. Now, if people want to watch your videos, and I do suggest that people subscribe to Ash's YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/That Preston Journalist, and follow Ash also on twitter.com/AKWriting88. That's fantastic. Ash, more power to your elbow, and well done with your YouTube channel. I know it's gone from strength to strength, and you've got viewers. You put out a video, and an hour later it's got 3,000 views. That's what we call good going. So thanks, Ash. We'll get you back on as soon as we can, and we'll be in touch.
Yep. Thank you, Alistair, and thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye now. Fantastic. Ash, That Preston Journalist, a great and always favourite commentator on our show. And thanks for everybody who are sending in the comments to Ash there. That's very much appreciated. Thank you, Ash. Now, what else have we got to mention? Today is the day in 1606 when the Union Jack was effectively born. And if you want this flag, we do sell it at our shop. Let's put up the link to it. Shop-1 at our website. And there you go. Always better to have a Union Jack and not need it than to need it and not have it. And with the coronation coming up, you might want to be hanging that outside your window. Good. Band of Bikers says Ash has a great channel and straight to the point. We agree. Now, a question today. We said that on this day, 12th of April back in 2018, the International Bomber Command Centre Museum was established in which great British city? And the answer was, of course, Lincoln. And the winner is Paul Hadlow. Good to see Paul winning the event. We'll get that flag sent off to you, Paul, and I know you'll put it to very good use. Okay, well, it's the top of the hour. Now, folks, every second Friday we send out an email update, and you can sign up to that at aforceforgood.uk/sign-1, and that's something that is worth signing up to. Keeps you in touch with what we're doing, because we do have quite a bit of summer activism lined up, and we'll keep you in the picture with that at aforceforgood.uk/sign-up. Sign up to that, and also give us a follow on YouTube, please, because that's always helping us also. Now, we'll be back with a guest next week. It's David Scott, and next week is going to be a special program, because we're going to last for an hour and a half, because last time that David was on, he had a lot to say, and I know he's going to have even more to say this time. So we're going to do a 45-minute interview with David Scott of UK Column. That'll be next week. So our program next week will run from 7 until 8:30, and that's thanks to our assistant producer for arranging that particular one. That'll be next Wednesday the 19th, an hour and a half program with a great extended interview with David Scott, and we're going to talk about what is the SNP, among other things also. But until then, folks, thank you for watching across all our channels, and thank you also on TikTok. And we will be back next week. So it just remains for me to say, God bless the United Kingdom, and God save the King. See you next week.